Prince redefined rock with a style and sound that was unmistakably his own. From his boundary-pushing persona to his unmatched musical talent, here's why there will never be another musician quite like him. When he was growing up, Prince was something of a musical sponge, listening to any and all music he could and absorbing it. From Jimi Hendrix to Grand Funk Railroad, his influences coalesced. As a teenager, he formed a band, Grand Central, and began getting booked at school dances and proms, which meant he had to learn how to play the top 40 hits of the day in order to appeal to as many teens as possible. With all those varied influences commingling, Prince grew comfortable operating within a wide range of musical genres. That came to be evident in his eclectic body of work, spanning from rock anthems to straight-out funk. Many of his hits blended these seemingly opposing styles into a cohesive whole that can only be described as Prince music. Perhaps the most obvious example of Prince's genre bending is funk and roll, a blend of guitar-driven rock with R&B, funk, and dance music. That ultimately proved to be Prince's superpower, allowing him to attract a diverse array of fans with music that transcended race and genre.
I have nothing else to prove. I feel like the greatest performer that I could have been.
While Prince the recording artist was bold, experimental, and brilliant, Prince the live performer was explosive. Borrowing dance moves from legends like Michael Jackson and James Brown, Prince commanded the stage like few other performers. Case in point, his brief but utterly show-stopping performance at the 2007 Super Bowl halftime show. Prince was also a tough-as-nails band leader who expected the same precision from his fellow musicians that he expected from himself. Inspired by Brown's practice of finding band members who hit a bad note, he began to do the same thing, once finding his bass player $1,200 for a single gig. In a 2011 interview with The Guardian, Prince characterized himself as a loving tyrant, saying, "I'm probably the hardest band leader to work for, but I do it for love." Even though he'd long ago attained immense stardom, Prince was also aware of how fleeting it could be. When he hit the stage, fans could be guaranteed that he wouldn't be phoning it in. According to him, "I play each show as if it's the last one." When Rolling Stone compiled its 2004 list of the 100 greatest guitar players of all time, many were surprised that Prince wasn't on it. For anyone who had ever witnessed him rip into a guitar solo, this omission was as insulting as it was baffling. Later that same year, he appeared at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Among those being inducted was the late Beatle George Harrison, and Prince was part of the all-star band on stage for a live performance of Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Standing alongside a group of rock royalty that included Tom Petty, Prince stepped up to take on the song's iconic guitar solo. Fiercely unleashing on a Fender Telecaster, Prince blew the roof off the place with fiery fretwork that is still considered legendary. It was an act of vengeance aimed at Jan Wenner, Rolling Stone's then publisher and co-founder of the Hall of Fame. In an interview with the New York Times, the show's producer Joel Gallen recalled that Prince's solo during the rehearsal was tame and muted compared to what he unleashed at showtime, leaving everyone stunned. Petty was also particularly impressed with his musicianship, telling the Times, "He just burned it up. You could feel the electricity of something really big's going down here." Prince was still a teenager when he was signed to a record deal with Warner Brothers and entered the studio to record his 1978 debut album, For You. Released when he was 19, For You was distinctive in that it not only introduced Prince's unique sound, but that he'd played every single instrument on the album, all 27 of them.
The key to longevity is to learn every aspect of music that you can.
The credits on For You say that every track was produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince. That feat made him the youngest artist in the label's history to produce his own album and play every instrument on it. As Prince told Insider magazine in 1978, he viewed the recording studio the way an artist views a blank canvas. He explained, "The instruments are colors on a palette. The mics and boards are brushes. I just keep working it until I've got the picture, or rather the sound that I heard inside my head when it was just an idea."
You know, I come from the old school making albums, and that's what I love.
When Prince signed his deal with Warner Brothers, one of the stipulations was that he would never have to work with a producer. He believed that the only person who could produce Prince was Prince. He held fast in that and produced every single album he released prior to his death. Winning that right, however, was hard-fought. Warner Brothers execs were extremely hesitant to hand the reins to the newly signed artist and pushed for Earth, Wind & Fire's Maurice White to produce his debut album. Prince's skills behind the soundboard were in hot demand, and he produced albums for other artists from Chaka Khan to Sly and the Family Stone bassist Larry Graham. He also produced albums for those with whom he'd worked, including percussionist Sheila E. and his protege girl group Vanity 6. He also produced a jazz album for a group called Madhouse. Madhouse was a band in name only, as it actually consisted of horn player Eric Leeds and Prince himself working anonymously. Prince was just 7 years old when he wrote his first song, Funk Machine, which he composed on his father's piano. He never stopped, and his output was legendary. It's been estimated that by the time of his death, he'd written in excess of 8,000 songs. These included tracks released on his albums, those recorded by others, numerous songs that remain hidden in his vast vault of unreleased material, and even some that he wrote anonymously. In 2024, several years after his death, Prince was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Prince's sister, Sharon L. Nelson, accepted the award on his behalf. Tragically, Prince had been secretly scheduled to receive the award shortly before his death in 2016, but passed away 2 months before the surprise ceremony. For Prince, writing songs was organic, not contrived. He'd never set out to write hits for his label to market. He told the New York Times in a 1996 interview, "The music for me doesn't come on a schedule. The main idea is not supposed to be, how many different ways can we sell it? That's so far away from the true spirit of what music is." The songs that Prince wrote were just as memorable for their catchy hooks as they were for his brash, insightful, and often controversial lyrics. A single line in Little Red Corvette tells listeners everything they need to know when Prince sings, "I guess I should have known by the way you parked your car sideways that it wouldn't last." And to say that the psychedelia-infused lyrics of When Doves Cry place a distinct picture in one's mind is a major understatement. Prince took his songwriting to a whole new level with the socially conscious Sign of the Times, tackling both the AIDS crisis and gun violence in the opening line when he referenced a big disease with a little name and teenagers on the streets high on crack toting a machine gun. Prince was well aware that the lyrics of his songs would have a cultural impact, and he explained his motivation as a lyricist in a 1999 MTV interview.
The truth is that you either are here to enlighten or discourage.
Removing his music from the equation, it's arguable that Prince's defining characteristic was his immense eccentricity, and there are plenty of examples of his quirky behavior. These included his refusal to allow journalists to record their interviews with him, as well as his penchant for light-up roller skates. Then there was the time that he recorded a new album, only to shelve it after taking ecstasy and having an epiphany that the music was too dark to release to the public. The Black Album went on to become a popular bootleg that received an official release a few years later. Prince's outlandish personality was on full display in an infamous 1985 interview with Rolling Stone. In addition to his admission that he hadn't cried since he was a teenager, a tour of his home revealed that one of the guest bedrooms contained a garden gnome covered in live, fluttering butterflies. Prince explained, "A friend gave that to me, and I put it in the living room. But some people said it scared them, so I took it out and put it in here." Beyond all the hits that Prince wrote and recorded, he also wrote numerous songs that became hits for other artists. This lengthy list includes Sugar Walls for Sheena Easton, Stand Back for Stevie Nicks, and With This Tear for Celine Dion. Meanwhile, the all-female pop band The Bangles scored a major hit with the Prince-penned Manic Monday, which made it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Speaking with Big Issue, Bangles singer Susanna Hoffs recalled Prince leaving the song for her on a cassette tape. She said, "He'd recorded it with his own band, but told me he thought it was perfect for the Bangles. When I first sang it, I thought to myself, how did he know? Some songs just fit like a glove."
A lot of times people think I'm doing Sinead O'Connor's song,
right,
and Shaka Khan's song,
yes,
when in fact I wrote those songs.
An even bigger hit was Nothing Compares to You. Recorded by Irish singer Sinead O'Connor, the single topped the Billboard Top 100 in 1990 and remained at number 1 for 4 weeks. At the time, Prince had no envy that she'd taken his song to number 1, but was instead thrilled with the success she was experiencing. He told Rolling Stone, "I think we just took that song as far as we could, then someone else was supposed to come along and pick it up." The massive success of the Purple Rain movie and album brought Prince the financial freedom to build his own studio complex in Minneapolis, which would also be his home. With plans drawn up in 1985, construction of the 65,000 square foot building, dubbed Paisley Park, took 2 years until its completion in 1987. Paisley Park was outfitted with a recording studio, video facilities, and other amenities. There, Prince would be able to jump on any idea that struck him, whether it was a new song, a video, or whatever he happened to envision. After Prince's death, Paisley Park was opened to the public as a museum. Fans are invited to tour the complex, explore exhibits, and view a vast array of archival material. Prince realized he was famous for the first time in a rather humbling encounter. He was wearing old clothes and on his way to help a friend move when a girl excitedly recognized him. Except her friend insisted that he couldn't possibly be Prince, not in those ratty duds. Prince told The Guardian, "I didn't come out of the house raggedy after that." That's an understatement. Prince became legendary for his style, continually evolving his distinctively outrageous fashion sense. When Paisley Park converted to a museum after his death, 2 full-time archivists began cataloging and preserving thousands of items of clothing that Prince wore over the years, ranging from jumpsuits to more than 600 pairs of high-heeled shoes. That clothing was created by an in-house team of 10 tailors, putting together fashion creations that Prince would usually conceptualize himself. He did, however, occasionally buy clothing off the rack. Director Kevin Smith, who was approached to film a never-shot documentary about Prince, revealed that when Prince played basketball, he typically wore warm-up suits.
I dare you to challenge Prince to a game of ball one-on-one. Challenge him!
One of Prince's assistants told Smith that they'd buy those at Nordstrom's from the boys department due to Prince's small stature. While Prince's deal with Warner Brothers afforded him an unprecedented level of autonomy for a 19-year-old singer, his relationship with his label became strained during the early 90s. It all hit the fan when disagreements with Warner Brothers over money and artistic control escalated. At issue was the frequency at which Prince wanted to put out albums, with the label limiting how much music he could release and how often. Prince explained in an interview with Reuters, "Warner wanted a record only every 18 months. I could release a record every 7 months. I could not record when I wanted to." Another sticking point was royalties, particularly over his blockbuster Purple Rain album, which continued to be a hot seller a decade after its release. Prince complained, "I still get the same money for Purple Rain as I did then." Rather than keep those battles in the boardroom, Prince decided to take it all public when he began appearing in his concerts with the word slave written on one of his cheeks, a highly provocative move for a black artist. Prince told Rolling Stone in a 1996 interview, "People think I'm a crazy fool for writing slave on my face, but if I can't do what I want to do, what am I?" Prince's battle with Warner Brothers led him to make one of the boldest and strangest moves in music history by changing his name to an unpronounceable symbol. Prince, who was now being referred to as the artist formerly known as Prince, declared in a press release, "The first step I have taken towards the ultimate goal of emancipating from the chains that bind me to Warner Brothers was to change my name from Prince to Symbol. Prince is the name that my mother gave me at birth. Warner Brothers took the name, trademarked it, and used it as the main marketing tool to promote all of the music that I wrote." The meaning of the symbol itself wasn't entirely clear, but Prince tried to explain it in his statement. "It's all about thinking in new ways, tuning into a new frequency."
I'm really looking forward to the future now.
Ultimately, Prince churned out enough albums to fulfill his contractual agreement with the label, concluding with Chaos and Disorder. His contract done, he then went on to unveil his 19th studio album, Emancipation. He told USA Today, "This is what freedom sounds like. This is the most exciting time of my life. There was nothing in the way when I recorded. Nobody looked over my shoulder. Nothing was remixed, censored, chopped down, or edited." In 2014, viewers of New Girl experienced the rare sight of Prince guest starring on a TV sitcom. He'd emailed the show's star Zooey Deschanel to let her know that the only things he watched on television were news and New Girl. Producers jumped at the opportunity to bring him onto the show, but Deschanel admitted that she was a bundle of nerves when he arrived on set. She told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, "It's safe to say that anyone who only goes by one name is going to be intimidating. He's a cultural icon." According to her co-star, Hannah Simone, Prince was open to the experience. She said, "We do some strange stuff on the show, and he was up for all of it. I heard he had a really good sense of humor, and he really does. He was wonderful, incredibly open, sweet, and charming." A decade after that 2014 episode, however, Simone revealed that Prince had an ulterior motive for appearing on the show. He had a crush on her. Simone said in an episode of her podcast, The Mess Around, he tried for a very long time to find a way to be in the same room together.
He's really interesting and fun and smart to talk to. We'll be friends, but I'm not interested like that.
After Prince was freed from his Warner Brothers contract, he maintained tight control over his music. That was evident in 2015 when he removed it all from streaming. Spotify users who tried to listen to one of his songs were greeted with a message. Prince's publisher has asked all streaming services to remove his catalog. At that point, the only streaming service upon which Prince allowed his music was Tidal, the venture launched by rapper-turned-mogul Jay-Z. When interviewed by Ebony, Prince explained why he'd decided to throw his support behind a business owned by a fellow black artist, saying, "Tidal is a new company. I think when there's a company like that, situations where we finally get into a position to run things, we all should help. It's been a lot of fun." Prince also revealed he was hands-on with how his music was presented to listeners on Tidal, explaining why he didn't want to hand it over to an algorithm. Then, of course, There was the manner in which Tidal paid artists royalties when compared to other streaming services. He said, Apple, Pandora, Rhapsody, Deezer, when you give them your record, you might get paid 6 months later. Beyoncé, her last album came out, $18 million went into the kitty the very next day. One facet of Prince's sound, at least during his 1980s heyday, was his groundbreaking use of drum machines. That sound, in fact, can be heard on some of his biggest hits, including When Doves Cry, Purple Rain, Raspberry Beret, and many others. While other acts tried to use drum machines in an attempt to capture that sound, Prince made that practically impossible, and that was because he meticulously programmed each one himself.
That's why it's so important to let your gift be guided by something more clear.
His primary drum machine of choice was the Linn LM1, and nobody took the technology further than Prince did. Roger Linn, the device's inventor, told Reverb he didn't just select a stock beat and press play, but rather used it in unusual and creative ways, from detuning the drums to no longer sound like drums, to the unusual beats he programmed, to how he featured it in the mix. Among the unique techniques Prince utilized was using his fingers to drum complex patterns that were captured by the LM1. He also got even more creative, running the LM1 through an effects pedal for When Doves Cry to achieve a sound that had never before been heard. In fact, Linn himself credits Prince with putting him on the map. He said, "He was very important to my success." In the Purple Rain movie, Prince's character, the Kid, is in the midst of a musical rivalry with Morris Day and his funk band, The Time. What viewers of the film may not have realized is that Prince discovered Day, put together the band, and even wrote songs for it. Day started out as a drummer, which was how he first got to know Prince when they were just kids, and as teenagers they played together in Prince's band, Grand Central. Playing drums eventually led him to sing a few numbers when Prince didn't want to sing a particular song. That led to The Time, which was essentially Day and Prince working together in the studio before a full-fledged band was assembled. Once that band came together, Day recalled Prince being a taskmaster, forcing them to rehearse endlessly until they were a tight musical unit. Day told Rolling Stone in 2021, "I always say he created a Frankenstein monster. When we got on the road and it started to show, some people were like, 'Damn, I think The Time was better than Prince tonight.' And he's like, 'Oh, what have I done?'" Prince had confirmed that in a 1990 interview with Rolling Stone. He admitted to the outlet, "To this day, they're the only band I've ever been afraid of." One of the stranger stories in Prince lore involved a Beverly Hills mansion he once rented from Chicago Bulls forward Carlos Boozer. During an appearance on ESPN 1000's The Waddle and Sylvie Show, Boozer's teammate Jay Williams recalled a funny moment in which Boozer told him he once drove past his own house and didn't even recognize it. Prince had undertaken massive renovations while renting the place. Williams said, "Supposedly, Prince changed the front gate to the Prince sign. He changed the master bedroom to a hair salon. He changed the streaming blue waters that led to the front door to purple water. He knocked out walls. He changed the molding on top of the ceiling." Understandably, Boozer was not thrilled with the unauthorized changes.
I think he wanted the house to feel like his every time he stepped in it.
But according to Williams, when Boozer went to confront Prince, he was presented with a check for $1 million to cover the cost of putting everything back the way it was. Williams said, "And Booz was like, 'This little man is cool as hell.'" Boozer confirmed Williams' account, but refused to offer any details. He explained, "We had a disclosure thing. He did some very specific things that were built for him and his lifestyle, which is very different from mine." Prince certainly wasn't the first rock star to flirt with androgyny, but there's no arguing that he took it to a level beyond any of his predecessors. He made that pretty clear in the lyrics to "I Would Die For You" when he sang, "I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I am something that you will never understand." Radio DJ Donnie Simpson told NBC News that Prince pushed the envelope as far as he could when it came to blurring gender lines, yet didn't receive the kind of scorn typically associated with that. Simpson observed, "So often people say he was a trendsetter, but how many other men did you see walking around in high heels with their butt out? He did it and no one else could. How does a guy like that fit in and people still like him?" Rapper Frank Ocean, one of the few hip-hop artists to come out as openly gay, recalled that Prince's nonconformist attitudes surrounding gender greatly influenced him. He wrote in a Tumblr post, "He was a straight black man who played his first televised set in bikini bottoms and knee-high heeled boots. Epic. He made me feel more comfortable with how I identify sexually simply by his display of freedom from and irreverence for obviously archaic ideas like gender conformity."
Sexuality is very spiritual in nature, and that's a God-given gift too.
When Prince emerged, artists generated revenue via album sales, with vinyl eventually supplanted by CDs. By the end of the 90s, however, technology was beginning to upset that model. So Prince began to envision a new way to distribute music in the digital age as technology sent CD sales on a downward trajectory. In 1998, he was the first major artist to release an album exclusively via digital download. In 2001, he launched his own website, NPG Music Club, a subscription service where fans could download his music. When he released his 2004 album Musicology, rather than selling the CD, he instead included it free of charge to anyone who purchased a ticket to his highly anticipated summer tour. Prince told CNN at the time, "The music industry rules were made by people who don't really play music. I think that some of them need to be rewritten." The genius strategy paid off handsomely, with each ticket sale counting as an album sale in the Billboard charts. When the dust settled, Prince's tour had raked in close to $90 million, the album went double platinum, and interest in Prince's back catalog had surged in the face of the career resurrection he'd engineered all on his own.